Hey everyone, it is Fitz with your Power Talk, Monday press conference edition. Coach Chris Klieman and 5 different players met with the media, and it was a different vibe, needless to say, coming off of Kansas State's 34-20 victory over UCF. Much improved performance by the Wildcats, but is it good enough? Well, honestly, it was good enough to win this one. It was good enough to stop the bleeding, because that's the first thing you got to do when you've suffered a trauma, in this case a 1-3 start, is to stop whatever's going on, poor play and losing. And they did that. It wasn't a perfect performance. They got to be better than that. The defense mostly fell apart in the second half, got bailed out by a couple of interceptions, but a vast majority of the UCF yardage came after the first possession of the second half. And of course, there was explosive plays all over the place. That was a major issue. And as Chris Klieman said, that can't happen. They've got to settle that down. And that's probably the biggest thing that came out of this game, is that the defense was so good for more than the first half, basically 35 minutes of the game, that it was odd to watch it kind of come apart. And he thinks the first explosive play, which actually came in the first half, and that accounted for well more than half of UCF's yardage in the first 35 minutes of games. I mean, it's incredible. It was a vast majority of it. That kind of took the wind out of their sails and maybe broke their confidence a little bit, because they were playing with a lot of confidence. So the good news is this team got the win. They're 2-3 now, 1-1 in the Big 12. The bad news is there seems to still be a sense of fragility with this team, in this case the defense, that has to be left behind. They have to respond. As Chris Klieman says, what do you do when you're punched in the mouth? I don't know. I've never been punched in the mouth, but you got to fight back. You got to respond. And this is a trait of this team that might be hard to break. But I'm telling you right now, if they don't break that trend, they're not going to a bowl game. And they have a lot of work to do. Let's get into that real quick. First of all, I used to be a math guy. I used to be able to just do all kinds of math in my head. Now, this math I can do, but I have a lady that lives with me that does all my math. That's not my wife, Becky, or Daphne, the dog. She's actually really bad at math. And I mean Becky, not Daphne. But, Alexa, do you like doing math for me?
You bet. Numbers and I get along like peanut butter and jelly. Plus, I never have to worry about showing my work or getting marked down for messy handwriting. Perks of being digital.
That's my girl right there. She does all my math. But this math I could do on my own.
I'll just be here whenever you need me, ready to crunch numbers or spell words like the digital sidekick I am.
Did that get creepy? I don't know. Hey, there's 7 games left. K-State is 2-3. Of course, you know this. You got to be 6 wins, 6-6 at the least, unless there's not enough teams to get into a bowl game. That means K-State's got to go 4-3 the rest of the way. That's going to be difficult, isn't it? Because you look at this schedule, starting with Saturday morning's game against Baylor. That's where it all starts. And then they come home and play a 2:30 p.m. game on Fox against TCU a week from Saturday. You basically have to win both, if not at least one of those games. And let me get into why. Let's look ahead to the schedule. After playing TCU, they get a week off before going to Kansas. Now, I don't know if Kansas is as good as we thought, if they're not as bad as they played Saturday against Cincinnati. I'm not sure, but I know this: they've come pretty close the last 2 years to beating K-State. Now you're talking, I believe, you've got to win 2 out of those 3. Why? Well, the final stretch of this season gets a little gnarly for K-State. After Kansas, Texas Tech comes in. And I think Texas Tech is one of the better Big 12 teams we've seen, at least at this point, in quite a while. I think Texas Tech could do some damage in the playoff, which would be very good for the Big 12. Not so good if they do the damage beating the tar out of K-State. I'm going to just go ahead and say this. In my mind, I'm counting that as a loss. The game's got to be played. Then they get another week off after that grueling 2-game stretch. Love the schedule. And they go to Oklahoma State. I'd like to say it's a win. But that whole program's in kind of a transition. They fired their head coach. They just fired their defensive coordinator. They looked better for a half on Saturday against Baylor. What will they be like come the end of the season? Will they be settled into a better identity of themselves, or will they be a mess? That's a must-win for K-State. Then the next week, they go to Utah. Utah is big and physical. Kyle Whittingham, coach Utah, has them back on track. They look like the Utah team that everyone thought was joining the Big 12 until they came apart at the seams a year ago. Let's count that as a loss. Folks, with those 2 games, you've got 5 losses. You can only lose 1 more, and you finish up with Colorado at home. I'm going to count that as a win. So these next 3 games, Kansas State basically has to win 2 of them, and 2 of them are on the road. I'm going to be blunt here. I'm not feeling good about that. Not good at all. So this team has to get better. I think this conference is very interesting this year. I think there's an upper crust that is above everyone else, and honestly, K-State's not in that, of course. And then there's a bottom tier that is worse than everyone. And I think K-State is going to escape that. I think the UCF performance helped. We'll see what they do these next 3 games. The issue here is Kansas State played well enough to win. As I said, they stopped the bleeding. But now they got to do massive repair and fix schematic things that have given them problems. Offensively, I thought K-State was much better against UCF. And what I mean by that is they seemed to make more timely plays. I thought Matt Wells had a better sequencing of his play calling. He got back to throwing the ball to the tight end, and we saw Avery Johnson run the ball, both with designed runs and also on scrambles. His first scramble of the game came in the first possession when he went for 25 yards. Settled him in, got him going. And while Avery wasn't outstanding, he looked more like himself for the first time this season. I found that really encouraging. And he's going to have to continue to get better. But the real key here is that the rest of the team needs to stay healthy. They've got to stay healthy. They are now missing Jace Brown. We think it's a turf toe that they thought he could play on, and then it kind of gave in on him or gave out on him. They've got J.B. Bradley still out, and other guys are beaten up. They got really thin at receiver. In fact, they were down to their last receivers. That's how thin they got, that were playing in the rotation. They leaned a lot on Jerron Tibbs, and he was really good. But for the full scope of this offense to take grip, Avery Johnson needs all of those receivers. He played that game without 2 of his top 3 receivers. And because of that, he spread the ball around a little bit. And as I mentioned, Tibbs played pretty darn well. So get healthy and get back on track to be the identity that K-State football has been, which is physical, determined, and you've got to play 60 minutes of football. The defense gave out for 25 minutes, and again, they made some big plays. You can't discount that. You can't throw those out. Those interceptions by Maldonado and Quay Moss were huge. Quay Moss's was ridiculously incredible. You can't always count on that. They got UCF off the field more often on 3rd and 4th down. But those big plays, going to chew them up. And if you're prone to giving up big plays, well, Baylor is the big play team of the Big 12. Sawyer Robertson and this offense make a lot of sudden scoring plays, mostly through the air. Be a huge test for Kansas State. If they can win this one on Saturday in Waco, I'm going to feel a lot better about this team because I will like their chances against TCU and Kansas. TCU's pretty darn good, though. I don't want to count that as a loss, but from what I've seen from the Frogs, let's be honest, they're a lot better than the Cats as of right now. Keep getting better, win a game, keep moving forward, one at a time. Don't think of the big math project ahead, if that's a math project. Think of the game that's in front of you and play the entire one. Starting at McLean Stadium on Saturday. Myself and Ryan Gilbert will be there with coverage. Cole Carmody and Brian Hanley will have the post-game podcast once again. Appreciate your ongoing support of Go Power Cat. That's it for your Power Talk.